In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace front brakes, pads, and rotors on a Jeep Renegade. 17mm socket. Let's take the lug studs off. Take the caliper boot bleeder screw cap off, remove that boot and save it, set it aside. 11mm wrench or socket, we're going to break that bleeder screw free, just like that, and then just slowly snug it so it's easier to break free later. Now we're going to dismount the caliper from the bracket. Caliper mounting bolts is a 14mm socket or wrench, and inward pins have a hex on it. That's a 17mm wrench, and you'll need to hold it and break that bolt free from the pin. Go ahead and remove it. And you'll note that there could be a little bit of thread locker on there, so we're going to clean those up and reapply when we install. Do the same to the top, 14mm. Break it free. Now we can remove the caliper. Just grab it, pull forward, just like that. Before I go any further, I want to make sure my boot on the caliper is good and dry, not wet, and there's no dry rot or cracks in it. And I'm going to get my tool that's going to push this caliper back, the piston, and I'm going to snug it up. I'm just going to snug it, and that is why I broke that free. So now it's ready to go. I don't have to worry about fighting with it. So now with my 11mm wrench, I'm going to break that free again, and then I'll put my little catch drain on there. And now I can freely push that piston back without getting fluid everywhere. And I'm not pushing the old fluid back into the caliper. Now I'm not pushing the old fluid back into the master where damage can be done. Just go till the piston bottoms out. Get my wrench, take that off and snug it up. So now we can take our ratcheting tool off, reverse that. Get that out of there. And I'm going to take a caliper hanging tool. It's a little hook. And I'm going to bring it up and hook it on the strut and get it right out of my way. Now we're going to dismount the caliper bracket from the knuckle. You have two mounting bolts right there. So the caliper mounting bracket to knuckle, these are an E20, which is inverted Torx. That's not a socket, that's not a 12-point or a 6-point. It's an E, so it is an inverted Torx, E20. We're going to break those free. Let's get the top one. These have come right from the factory with that thread locker on it, so we're going to clean that up with a wire wheel brush and reapply. Then you can remove that bracket, pull it right out. So now we're going to remove the mounting screw that holds the rotor on the hub, and that is a 5mm Allen head or hectagon. Now I'm going to take a lug nut, or shall I say a lug stud, and I'm just going to put it back on by hand, so when I hit this rotor with a hammer, it doesn't go flying off. So now we're going to clean our hub surface, get it all rust free. You can use a wire wheel or a little sander. I'm just gonna clean it with some parts cleaner, get all that dust off. And while that's drying, I'm gonna clean up my bracket and put my pads in. So now we have our bracket on the bench and we're gonna take the old pads out. I like to note where the pad's seated so that way I can make sure that I have the correct pad where the sensor goes. Make sure it's gonna be in the right place. That's set from the factory. Little hammer gets it out a lot easier, less fighting. All right, so now we have our bracket with the tins. Little screwdriver actually helps because this is a little hold point right in there. Get rid of them because we have new ones. All right, now we got to get rid of all this rust. You want to make sure that you get rid of all of it. Nice clean surface for underneath the new tins. You can use sandpaper, wire brush, wire wheel. You can do it to both sides. Got some old buildup here. See if I can get it free with the screwdriver. That's the factory thread locker. All right, I'm just gonna take my brake clean, give it a quick rinse. Nice and clean. Take some silicone paste, and I'm going to coat the caliper bracket where the tins are going to go. So now with it underneath the tins to stop rust buildup, I'm going to snap it right into place. Now the holding part of this tin hardware is right here in the center. So I'm going to give it a little bonk. Just like that. We're going to do the same to this side. Trying to get where the water would run. I don't want it to ever settle in there. It'll cause a major brake problem. It's going to wear the pads unevenly, freeze the pads. It's a whole bunch that it does. Okay, now we can go right to our slider pins. So I do one at a time. I just pull back on the boot, squeeze the boot like that, and twist, and out the pin will come. I'm going to examine the pin, clean it up, make sure there's no rust pitting. Looks good. Now check your boot. Do the same with that. No tears. You don't want any tears. So I'm going to take some fresh paste. Inside that boot's really dry. So I like to put the paste in there and I'll squeeze it. And I want to get some of that silicone paste right inside those grooves. I'll take my pin after I've cleaned it and put a coating on this. Now when I guide it, I like to spin it. It'll let the air come out and any excess silicone paste. Spin it till it locks on. I like to grab the pin itself and wiggle it. Make sure you don't feel any bonking inside there, because if you do, well, then it's going to make tons of noise. Now I'm just going to put some silicone on the back, make that boot really pliable so it weatherproof, doesn't dry and rot. Saves you from having to replace those in the future. Now let's do the same to the top pin. Squeeze and spin, just like that. Now you notice one pin has a rubber boot on it and the other one did not. That's why I like to do them one at a time, so I know that it goes back in the spot it's supposed to be. Sometimes you'll have pins longer than the other or shorter. You're going to look for swollen or split or dry rotted or even missing. If it's missing, it needs to be replaced. Let's do the same that we did with that bottom. Put a little bit of silicone paste in there. Squeeze it around. Now apply some to this pin. You can hear that air shoot right out. Now I'm going to put some on the outside of this boot. So the inner pad is the one closest to the bolts, and that's going to have the indicator on it also. I like to mount both of them, the pin facing down, not like that, like that, and it will slide right in. Spin it around, do the same thing. There we go, and now we can go over to the vehicle and install it. Now that we've cleaned our hub up and it's dry, I'm going to apply some high temp never seize to it, so that way the rotor won't get as rotted as it was. I'm going to take my new rotor and I'm just going to clean the surface on both front and back. We'll just get that packing oil off of there. Now we're going to line up the mounting bolt hole. Just like that. I'm going to get that mounting screw and install it. That's with that 5mm Allen head. Just like that. Here I have my caliper bracket mounting bolts. I cleaned the threads, got rid of the old thread locker, and I'm putting a dab of fresh. And it's the heavy duty red. Now I'm going to install my bracket with my pads. And start one of the bolts by hand. Get the bottom one. So this is that E20 socket. We're going to bottom it out on top and bottom. Now I can torque it to factory spec. Torque for this is 122 foot-pounds. Double check. Now I can take my caliper, get rid of that hook, slide it right on. The two mounting bolts, start them by hand, bottom them out. And I'm going to get my torque wrench and get ready to torque that to factory specs. 14mm socket, and we're going to torque this to 20 foot-pounds. Do the same on the top. Double check. Now install the wheel. Line up the lug holes. Lug studs, start them by hand. Okay, now we can lower it and torque it to spec. Wheel torque is 89 foot-pounds, 17mm socket. Do it in a star pattern. Double check. So now we're going to pump our brakes, make sure the fluid goes to the calipers all the way around. First I'm going to clean the top of the master, get any dirt out of there. And let that dry. And meanwhile, I can read the cover. I can see it from here, but I'll take the cover off once it's dried and show you. That's how you can check. Most manufacturers will put their type of fluid they want on that cover. It's going to be the .3, 4, 5. Right there it says .4. And I'm going to top that off. Fill it right to the top. Air bubbles going. That looks perfect. It's right at the max level, but I haven't pumped the brakes yet, so I'll probably have to recheck it and top it off. Always put your cover back on. Now we're clear to go inside and pump the brakes up. So we're not going to touch the brake. What we're going to do is put the car in accessory mode. So turn the ignition on, don't start it. And we're going to pump the brake up till we feel all the pistons seat. Nice slow pace. Right till you feel that pedal is nice and firm. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.